Snow White is running for president.
Yeah, because there's nothing more effective than 19-year-olds educating the rest of the voting public while yelling, "Okay, boomer."
She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
CEO of IBM.
To everyone who hates when I win.
Poor Zegler.
That at every premiere, people will wait in line to see.
Sound like I hear a couple of people.
I was scared of the original cartoon.
You're kidding, right?
It's Hollywood, baby.
God, you're annoying.
Rachel Zegler might have thought the worst was behind her. After all, the first South Park parody of her Snow White controversy already sparked weeks of memes, late-night jokes, and brutal internet commentary.
I never wanted to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities.
But if insider rumors are to be believed, the storm is far from over. According to several whispers circulating in Hollywood, South Park's writers are allegedly planning something even bigger.
This is no ordinary apple, my dear. It's a magic wishing apple.
A wishing apple? You offer it to me freely.
A full episode mocking Rachel's fallout from the Snow White disaster. Not just a passing gag, not just a scene, a targeted, no-holds-barred takedown. And if the rumors are true, Rachel isn't just humiliated, she's panicking.
In place of the patriarchy, you would have a queen! Not white, but diverse, inclusive, and equitable! I will become the leader I know I can be! All shall love me and despair!
Sources close to the situation claim Rachel's reaction to the rumors has been emotional and furious behind closed doors, already devastated by the way the first parody cemented her as Hollywood's newest punchline. The idea that South Park would double down with an entire episode dedicated to her alleged missteps reportedly pushed her over the edge. Friends of Rachel allegedly describe her mood as swinging between despair and absolute rage, convinced that another hit piece could permanently destroy her image in the industry.
Oh, what has she done to you? Fear not, First Love's kiss can break any curse.
One insider even claimed she called the idea personal character assassination disguised as comedy. And to make matters worse, Disney's silence on the matter has reportedly only fueled her feeling of isolation. After months of negative headlines, canceled press appearances, and now late-night cartoons turning her into a cultural punching bag, Rachel allegedly feels abandoned by the very machine that once promised to make her a household name. Some insiders speculate she's already looking into her options, both legal and PR-driven, should the full episode actually air. But with South Park's ironclad legal protections under satire laws, even her fiercest fight might not stop what's coming. For now, everything is still swirling in rumor. No official confirmation from Comedy Central, no teaser from Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Just a building, relentless buzz that South Park is preparing to turn up the heat. And if it's true, Rachel Zegler's public nightmare is about to get even darker and far more permanent.
It's the most emotional experience that a person can go through to know that what they're working on is something that has reached a generation of people.
While Rachel Zegler allegedly spirals behind the scenes, Disney executives are quietly bracing for a second impact. Insiders claim the rumors about South Park's alleged full episode mocking Rachel didn't just rattle her team, it sent waves of panic through Disney's top floors. According to whispers from within the studio, leadership knows another brutal parody won't just be a blow to Rachel's reputation. It could hammer Snow White's already crumbling box office prospects and permanently stain Disney's broader, live-action remake strategy. In private meetings, some allegedly describe the situation as a slow-motion train wreck they can't look away from. Sources close to the situation speculate that Bob Iger and his inner circle are debating whether to quietly shift resources away from Snow White's remaining marketing push altogether. With each new meme, each new viral clip, the film looks less like a promising reimagining and more like a cultural cautionary tale. And another South Park hit that would only accelerate the collapse.
You would do in a pinch, my queen. But Snow White's the fairest I have seen. Also, there's a weather girl on Channel 9 who's...
One alleged executive reaction summed it up grimly. If the first parody locked Rachel's image, a full episode could lock the movie's fate. The worst part for Disney is how little control they have over the situation. Insiders say the studio's initial strategy after the first South Park parody, stay silent, avoid feeding the controversy, was already seen as a gamble. Some executives allegedly argued that Rachel should make a carefully crafted apology tour to reframe public opinion. Others insisted that speaking up would just hand South Park more material. Now, with fresh rumors swirling, Disney is reportedly stuck between two bad choices: double down on silence and hope the fire burns itself out, or risk entering a public feud with the most merciless satirists in entertainment history. Either way, the stakes are enormous. Snow White was supposed to be a crown jewel in Disney's live-action empire, a proof point that the company could modernize classics for a new generation without losing their magic. Instead, it's become a warning shot, and every new rumor about South Park's next move reminds Disney just how much they've already lost. If a full episode drops, it won't just roast Rachel Zegler. It could roast Disney's credibility right along with her. When South Park first took aim at Rachel Zegler, no one, least of all Disney, seemed prepared for just how fast and brutal the fallout would be. Within hours of the episode airing, the internet erupted. Clips of the parody flooded TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, every platform you can name.
Excuse me, your curtain. Please allow me to help.
Help? From you?
I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you should know that.
That I should know what? That some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters? Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse.
And what made it sting even more was how perfectly South Park had nailed the timing. They didn't invent a caricature out of thin air. They simply exaggerated the version of Rachel that audiences already suspected existed. The preachy, out-of-touch diva who scolded them for loving the classics. Memes exploded almost immediately. Some showed cartoon Rachel berating dwarfs and love stories spliced side by side with her real interviews where she dismissed true love as outdated and called Snow White's prince a stalker. The parallels were brutal. One viral tweet put it bluntly: South Park didn't even have to exaggerate. They just hit play. Reaction videos popped up by the thousands, some from longtime Disney critics, others from fans who had barely followed the Snow White drama until now. Suddenly, even casual viewers who hadn't paid attention to Rachel's controversies were laughing, mocking, and sharing the roast. What insiders reportedly found most terrifying wasn't just the scale of the reaction, it was how deeply it locked in a new public narrative. Rachel wasn't seen as an ambitious young actress trying to modernize a beloved story anymore. She was seen as a symbol of Hollywood arrogance, a symbol of the studio machine gone wrong. And the more Rachel stayed silent, or worse, the more her team tried to control the narrative, the stronger the meme grew. Some in Disney's PR division allegedly warned early on that South Park's satire wouldn't just be a blip. They speculated it could define Rachel's career for years to come. And if rumors about a full episode focused entirely on her proved true, then that first viral strike was just the warm-up act. The internet already tasted blood, and it's clear, they're still hungry. Behind the scenes, Rachel Zegler's anger allegedly reached a boiling point after South Park's first parody blew up, and insiders claim it only got worse when whispers of a second full episode surfaced. Sources close to the situation say Rachel was absolutely furious that Comedy Central would allow her to be mocked so viciously, especially at a time when her movie's future already hung by a thread.
What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea what she's doing.
Friends reportedly describe her pacing, crying, venting that her career was being sabotaged by an animated roast, and when the rumors of a second takedown began circulating, something inside her snapped. According to whispers, Rachel allegedly pressured her team to explore ways to demand that Comedy Central pull the original episode. Some say she viewed it as defamatory, insisting it was a personal attack, not satire. Others claim she floated the idea of publicly calling out South Park for what she reportedly described as targeted humiliation. Legal advisors, however, allegedly warned her immediately. Satire protections are nearly bulletproof. No matter how cruel it felt, no court would take her side. And worse, any attempt to silence South Park would almost certainly backfire, making her look thin-skinned and inviting an even harsher response. Still, insiders say Rachel refused to back down easily. She reportedly saw pulling the episode, or at least forcing an apology, as her only way to salvage her reputation before a second parody buried her image completely. But her team, faced with an impossible situation, allegedly begged her to stand down. They warned that fueling the story would guarantee new headlines, fresh memes, and even more public ridicule. that trying to censor South Park would only prove every criticism thrown at her, that she was entitled, humorless, and out of touch. Ultimately, Rachel stayed silent publicly, but according to sources, it wasn't for lack of trying behind the scenes. And now, as rumors swirl that a full-blown episode roasting her might be in the works, the fear is growing that if Rachel does lash out publicly, it will only hand South Park and the internet their next viral victory. Because in Hollywood, there's one brutal rule no one escapes. Once you become a meme, the harder you fight it, the deeper it sticks. If Rachel Zegler was hoping the South Park firestorm would eventually burn itself out, The Simpsons made sure it didn't.
Like, who has been the most exciting person for you tonight?
Oh my god.
Besides, but shut, took the words out of my mouth. Besides.
Barely a beat after South Park's parody took over the internet, America's other most iconic animated show piled on, turning Rachel's fallout into a full-blown cultural movement. In a savage nod that insiders claim caught even Disney executives off guard, The Simpsons aired their own parody targeting Disney's Snow White remake. And while the character wasn't named directly, the resemblance to Rachel and her real-world controversies was impossible to miss. The fictional reboot inside the episode, Snow Woke the Reimagining, mocked everything that had already turned Rachel into a lightning rod: the removal of dwarfs, the preachy messaging, the rejection of true love in favor of empowerment monologues. The cartoon Snow White scoffed at fairy tale traditions, snubbed the prince, and woke up from a curse before a kiss could even be attempted. Viewers didn't need any hints. They knew exactly who and what was being roasted, and they loved every second of it. Clips from the episode flooded TikTok and Twitter within hours. Reaction videos blew up, comment threads filled with gleeful side-by-sides comparing Rachel's interviews to the cartoon's lines. For many, it wasn't just hilarious, it was cathartic. After months of Disney marketing trying to spin Snow White into a modern masterpiece, audiences felt like The Simpsons had finally said the quiet part out loud, that Disney's attempts to fix fairy tales had only alienated the very fans they needed most. For Rachel, the pile-on was devastating. Insiders say she allegedly watched the parody clips and felt utterly betrayed, not just by The Simpsons, but by Disney itself, which owns the show through its acquisition of Fox. According to whispers, Rachel believed Disney could have leaned on their ownership to stop the satire from airing. But if those hopes existed, they were crushed quickly. Disney, already in full damage control mode over the Snow White backlash, wasn't about to start a corporate war over a single episode of The Simpsons. And so the mockery snowballed. First South Park, then The Simpsons. Two legendary shows, two brutal parodies, both painting Rachel as the face of Hollywood's arrogance. Whether fair or not, the culture had spoken, and Rachel Zegler found herself at the center of a meme movement bigger than any movie she could star in. As if facing the wrath of South Park and The Simpsons wasn't enough, insiders now claim Rachel Zegler encountered backlash from within Hollywood itself, and it allegedly came from a figure no one expected.
We've watched as Snow White has been an absolute disaster. We know that Rachel Zegler contributed to it.
According to multiple rumors, actor and comedian Jack Black, known for his laid-back reputation and legendary status in family-friendly entertainment, allegedly confronted Rachel after her controversial Snow White interviews went viral. And if the whispers are true, it wasn't a friendly chat, it was a wake-up call. Sources close to the situation claim Jack Black was deeply frustrated with what Snow White had become. Having built his own career on striking a balance between humor, heart, and respect for audiences, Jack reportedly felt that Rachel's public comments, and Disney's broader approach, had spit in the face of the very nostalgia that made the original Snow White timeless. And allegedly, during a behind-the-scenes encounter, he didn't sugarcoat his opinion. While no official statements have confirmed the interaction, insiders speculate that Jack bluntly told Rachel that mocking the original film, alienating fans, and presenting herself as too good for a love story was a catastrophic miscalculation. Some even claim he warned her that Hollywood could forgive many things, but not alienating audiences. The alleged confrontation reportedly left Rachel shaken, with friends whispering that it was one of the moments that pushed her to seek therapy during the height of the backlash. And it wasn't just Jack Black. Other Hollywood figures, from directors to agents to longtime Disney collaborators, allegedly began distancing themselves as the Snow White meltdown grew. Some felt Rachel had simply mishandled the PR side. Others believed Disney's modernized vision had doomed the project from the start. But either way, a quiet revolt was forming. Rachel Zegler, once hailed as Hollywood's next big thing, was no longer seen as a safe bet. She was seen as a lightning rod, an actress who could bring headlines, Yes, but not the good kind. The fallout was brutal. For an industry obsessed with image and marketability, being seen as too controversial can be a death sentence. And as insiders claim more and more major players turned their backs, Rachel wasn't just fighting meme culture anymore. She was fighting the very machine that had once promised her the world. If South Park and The Simpsons mocked Rachel Zegler with savage cartoons, Joe Rogan and Bill Maher delivered the knockout punches with words. Almost overnight, the Snow White controversy wasn't just a Hollywood scandal. It had become a mainstream cultural symbol, dissected by some of the biggest voices in commentary, and their take was merciless.
Go see Snow White right now. The new one. Not that old, stupid one where the princess gets saved by some good, upstanding guy.
On his massively popular podcast, Rogan didn't hold back. He allegedly slammed the Snow White remake as yet another example of Hollywood tripping over itself to virtue signal, pointing out the irony of removing key elements like dwarfs, true love, and innocence, all to appease a shifting political climate. But what made Rogan's commentary hit even harder was how he allegedly personalized it, questioning why anyone would pay to see a movie where the star seemed to openly mock the source material and alienate half the country. Clips from his rant exploded across social media, cementing the idea that Rachel wasn't just suffering from bad marketing. She had become a poster child for Hollywood's worst instincts. Bill Maher, known for skewering both sides of the political aisle, echoed the sentiment. On his show, he allegedly roasted the very concept of fixing fairy tales to suit modern ideologies, arguing that Snow White's story wasn't broken, and that the industry's attempts to modernize it ended up feeling insulting, even offensive. Maher reportedly singled out Rachel's comments about the prince being a stalker and the dwarfs being erased from the story, suggesting that in trying to be progressive, Disney and its star had managed to alienate everyone. The combined effect was devastating. Rogan and Maher's criticisms weren't coming from inside Hollywood echo chambers. They were coming from cultural commentators with massive mainstream audiences. People who might not have cared about the Snow White remake now saw it as a case study in how corporations and stars could fumble beloved classics into oblivion. For Rachel, the consequences were immediate. Her image, already battered by animated parodies and internet memes, was now getting shredded by some of the most influential voices outside of entertainment. Industry insiders reportedly watched in horror as polls showed audience trust in Disney's live-action remakes plummeting, and Rachel's own likability rating among moviegoers taking a nosedive. And all of it, the cartoons, the podcasts, the commentary, was happening before the rumored second South Park episode had even aired. If the rumors were true, and another parody was in the works, the cultural takedown of Rachel Zegler and Disney's Snow White wasn't just underway, it was accelerating at full speed. Long before South Park sharpened its knives or Joe Rogan and Bill Maher chimed in, the seeds of Rachel Zegler's Snow White disaster were already quietly sprouting, and it all began with the dwarfs. What should have been a simple, loving tribute to one of Disney's most iconic elements turned into a full-blown cultural minefield.
According to reports, Gal and Rachel got along during filming. It's afterwards that things took a turn.
And insiders say it was this controversy, more than anything, that laid the groundwork for everything that followed. The trouble started when leaked set photos revealed that Disney's new Snow White remake had ditched the traditional 7 dwarfs entirely, replacing them with a random assortment of magical creatures. Some were tall, some were short, some looked human, some looked computer-generated. Fans were confused, critics were livid, and little person actors who rarely get roles this big in mainstream Hollywood films were outraged. For them, the dwarfs weren't offensive, they were opportunity. They were iconic roles that had stood the test of time. Replacing them wasn't seen as progress, it was seen as erasure. Fueling the fire was Peter Dinklage's earlier criticism in 2022, where he called out Disney for simultaneously patting themselves on the back for progressive casting while perpetuating what he saw as harmful stereotypes. In response, Disney panicked, allegedly scrapping their original dwarf-centered designs and rushing to create a more inclusive magical creature ensemble. But in doing so, they angered almost everyone. Traditional fans who loved the dwarfs, little person actors who lost major roles, and commentators who saw the changes as hollow pandering. Into this chaos stepped Rachel Zegler, and her interviews didn't help. Instead of acknowledging the dwarf's cultural importance, she reportedly leaned harder into the idea that Snow White needed to be modernized at every level. No focus on romance, no waiting for a prince, and, by implication, no place for the classic dwarfs who had been part of the magic for nearly a century. Whether she meant to or not, Rachel's soundbites made it easy for critics to frame her as disrespectful to the story she was supposed to champion. From that point on, it was a snowball rolling downhill. The dwarf controversy wasn't just a casting complaint. It became the symbol of everything audiences feared about Hollywood remakes: losing heart, losing history, and losing connection. It turned a few minor casting changes into a full-scale cultural war, and once the backlash began, it didn't slow down. Every meme, every podcast rant, every parody cartoon circled back to the same idea. Snow White wasn't Snow White anymore, and Rachel Zegler, fair or not, became the face of that betrayal. By the time Snow White finally stumbled into theaters, the writing was already on the wall, and it was scrawled in memes, YouTube takedowns, and a mountain of online mockery. Insiders reportedly knew opening weekend numbers would be rough, but few expected just how catastrophic they would turn out to be. For a film with a rumored budget north of $200 million,
I deserve to be paid.
We walk around in dresses, and we don't get paid for it, Rachel.
including expensive reshoots, marketing blitzes, and emergency PR cleanups, the returns were nothing short of devastating. Snow White didn't just underperform, it face-planted. Opening weekend ticket sales reportedly barely scratched $43 million, a catastrophic shortfall for what was supposed to be Disney's next crown jewel. Industry analysts, who had cautiously lowered expectations after the South Park and Simpsons parodies exploded online, were still stunned at how deeply the brand had cratered. Families stayed away. Nostalgic adults stayed away. Even hardcore Disney fans stayed away. The audience hadn't just rejected the movie, they seemed almost gleeful about its failure. And then there was the footage. Viral clips surfaced of people walking into nearly empty theaters. TikTokers filmed themselves buying Snow White tickets and finding auditoriums eerily abandoned. The silence louder than any applause could have been. Some joked that there were more dwarfs missing from the movie than people in the audience. Others showed concession stands stocked with untouched Snow White merchandise, popcorn buckets, dolls, t-shirts, gathering dust. One particularly brutal video showed Rachel Zegler and a few loyal friends attending a screening themselves, only to find the place nearly deserted. Trying to make the best of it, they laughed, took photos, and even joked with the staff. But the awkwardness was palpable. Instead of a triumphant moment for a rising star, it looked like a sad, strange footnote to a Hollywood dream that had gone terribly wrong. Insiders whisper that Disney immediately pivoted, downplaying box office figures and hoping the film might find new life on streaming, but the damage was done. Snow White's collapse was more than just a bad weekend, it was a public referendum. A loud, unmistakable message from audiences that no amount of glossy visuals or modernized storytelling could cover the fact that something essential had been lost. And hanging over it all were those rumors. That South Park, gleefully watching, the implosion they helped spark wasn't finished yet. That a full episode roasting Rachel Zegler's collapse was still brewing. If true, it would be less like rubbing salt in the wound and more like dynamiting the foundation.
I don't need your business. Thanks.
For Rachel Zegler, the fallout from Snow White is no longer just a rough patch. It's something far more dangerous, an image crisis that could define her for years to come. Hollywood loves to talk about redemption stories, about comeback arcs and second chances, but the reality is much harsher. Once an actor becomes a meme, once they symbolize something bigger than themselves, the road back is steep, brutal, and often impossible. Insiders close to Rachel allegedly say she's still hoping time will heal the wounds, that audiences will eventually separate the satire from her real talent, that people will come to appreciate the craft she brought to the film, the singing, the dedication, the performance, and forget the PR disasters, the interviews, the memes. Friends reportedly encourage her to stay patient, to stay silent, to let the internet find a new target. But it's hard to outrun a viral narrative when it's being refreshed daily by parodies, commentaries, and late-night jokes. And then there's the looming specter of South Park's alleged full-episode roast. If those rumors are true, and if the show really is preparing to dedicate an entire episode to mocking her, it could bury whatever goodwill Rachel has left. Not because the audience necessarily agrees with everything South Park says, but because repetition is power. Every meme, every viral clip, every punchline reinforces the new cultural shorthand. Rachel Zegler, the symbol of Hollywood arrogance gone wrong. Some experts argue that a carefully chosen indie role, something raw, stripped down, completely removed from Disney franchises, could eventually rehabilitate her image. That audiences love a good redemption arc when it's genuine. That a little humility, a little self-awareness could turn public scorn into public sympathy. But others are more cynical. They warn that Rachel's meltdown moment is too widely known, too deeply memed, too easy to weaponize anytime she tries to rise again. At this point, it's no longer about whether Rachel Zegler can act or sing or charm a camera. It's about whether audiences and Hollywood will ever let her escape the punchline she's become. So what do you think? Can Rachel claw her way back and reclaim her future? Or has meme culture already written the final chapter? And after this spectacle, do you think Hollywood will rethink the way it reimagines its classics? Or just double down harder? Hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because when you're ready to hear what Hollywood really doesn't want you to know, the next video is already waiting for you.